From the very first episode, Agatha All Along made it clear that even though WandaVision's lead Scarlet Witch was killed off in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, there was still plenty for Kathryn Hahn's Agatha Harkness to sink her teeth into. And Agatha All Along surely delivered on this promise, embracing the show's title in more ways than one. While the MCU's interconnected storylines have felt a bit shaky since WandaVision, Agatha All Along ended in a way that could help bring some focus back to the franchise, with its action-packed 2-episode finale that struck the perfect balance between character depth and setting up possible future stories. Within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the series left just enough open-ended threads to keep fans speculating about where the MCU might go next. Now, The Witch's Road has been the heart of Agatha All Along since the initial release of the show. From the fantasy-oriented elements of the forest to its harsh and unforgiving trials, even if the road was fictional, not for a minute did any of us think it was not real within the plot. But oh well. The banger finale of Agatha All Along did just flip the pages in our face. It's pretty much slammed the entire book in our head with its mind-bending twists. Throughout the series, Agatha's main goal was to gather a coven to help her journey down the Witch's Road and restore her magical powers. While Agatha and Billy did manage to complete the journey, neither came away with what they hoped for. As it turns out, there is a deeper reason behind this, and it all links back to the true origin of the Witch's Road. Without wasting another moment, let's find out what all the fuss is about. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, means an awful lot. Thank you, and let's begin. What did we initially know about the Witch's Road? So after Agatha was still stuck in Wanda's hex and lived a rather sad life in Westview as Agnes, a cynical detective with an unhealthy obsession with her work, it was actually Billy who managed to break her through Wanda's hex. Well, back then, Lilia's sigil was still protecting his identity, so we all know him as Teen. But for the sake of weeding out confusion, I am going to call him Billy and not Teen. Anyways, after Billy set out to find his brother Tommy, he heard both legends and rumors about Agatha Harkness that hinted she might know the way. Determined to track down his brother, he persuaded Agatha to help him access the Witch's Road. Agatha, who was still stripped of her powers by the Scarlet Witch, saw an opportunity to regain her magic by walking the road, and so she agreed to help him. She even considered recreating the same ritual that had once cost her own coven their lives, so she went along with Billy's plan. Together, they formed a new coven, recruiting Lilia Calderu, a divination witch, Jennifer Kale, a potions witch, Alice Wu Gulliver, a protection witch, and Sharon Davis, a substitute human in place of an actual green witch. The coven even performed a ritual, which was basically singing the ballad of the Witch's Road with all their power. This was happening while the Salem Seven were hell-bent on kicking Agatha's ass, and after a few futile attempts from Agatha's new coven, the door to the Witch's Road finally appeared when Billy came down to inform them of the Salem Seven arrival. Without wasting much time, the entire coven waltzed through the door into an enchanted forest with one long road in the middle. In the beginning of Agatha All Along, the approach followed a very WandaVision-like pattern, with each episode centered around a different witch and their unique trials. As Agatha explained, all the trials followed the same logic, where it was tied to the witch. The ones who successfully make it to the end of the road are destined to the glory, which promises them the chance to obtain their deepest desires. So at the end of the second episode of the show, when the door appeared, the coven walked down a spiral staircase leading up to the Witch's Road, and they do so after removing their shoes and walking barefooted on their journey. But as it was supposed to be, the journey was unforgivingly brutal. With every intense trial the coven triumphed, the stakes got higher while their ranks thinned out. Now, I initially thought Agatha All Along gave each character a clear purpose, with the Witch's Road as the driving force behind her actions. This mystical realm, which could be accessed by the coven singing the ballad in Witch's Road, promised to grant wishes to those who could survive its trials by giving the witches a powerful reason to unite. Much like WandaVision's sitcom spoofs, Agatha All Along paid homage to another genre with its nods to Mare of Easttown, while the Witch's Road focused on the show's commitment to practical effects, thus adding more depth to its magical world, which is rarely seen in the MCU. The road, with its hand-painted leaves and trees turning the set into a mystical forest, highlighted how the series used its modest budget to create a magical world that felt surprisingly real, perhaps even more so than WandaVision. Plus, it really helped us to root for the coven walking the road when the trials they faced were all inspired by horror movies, testing each witch's skills while allowing the show a structure that felt fresh while still echoing WandaVision in a way. But oh well, what is a good MCU show without its brain-racking twist? And we will definitely come to that after discussing how is the Witch's Road portrayed in the Marvel Comics? In the Marvel Comics, the Witch's Road starts off similarly as it did in Agatha All Along, but here the deeper characters go, the more it transforms into a mind-bending psychedelic landscape. In the comics, it was actually Wanda Maximoff who walked on the Witch's Road that ultimately led to Agatha's revival. Now, in more simpler terms, the Witch's Road is a magical dimension that runs parallel to Earth and is accessible only to witches and magic users. It looks a lot like Earth with different biomes and familiar elements, but what makes it unique is that it is filled with pure magical energy and home to various mystical creatures. Time also moves differently there and is much slower than on Earth. For example, if 2 days passes on the Witch's Road, only 6 hours will have gone by on Earth. But it seemed that in Agatha All Along, time moved much slower on Earth, as Billy was only gone for 24 hours during the time he was having his adventure, which included tracking Agatha down, pulling her out of Wanda's hex, assembling an entire coven, and then completing the entire walk down the Witch's Road. In the comics, the Witch's Road is not only the source of all magic and home to mystical entities, but it also serves another important purpose, as it is the afterlife for witches and magic practitioners. Depending on how they live their lives, their souls are sent to one of two smaller realms within the Witch's Road. The first is the Witch's Elysium. This is where souls who use magic for good, noble, or selfless purpose end up, and is a form of witch paradise where they are eternally rewarded for their actions. The second is the Witch's Underworld, especially reserved for those who use magic for evil, selfish, or harmful reasons. This is a nightmarish realm where souls are endlessly tormented by their greatest fears and regrets. Although the good thing is, the Witch's Road doesn't have a strict hierarchy or a formal society. Its inhabitants, whether they are souls of mages or native mystical beings, cooperate and support each other, but they don't organize into a structured community. They do, however, hold the belief that the strongest should protect the weakest. Now, unlike what we first saw in the TV show, in the Marvel Comics, the Witch's Road is also a mystical dimension ruled by the goddess of witchcraft, a cosmic entity who serves as the source of magic for witches and warlocks throughout the Marvel Universe. Although the Witch's Elysium is currently overseen by the Ancient One, and the Witch's Underworld is ruled by Lore, who is an evil version of the Scarlet Witch, but the road is also home to Chaos, a lesser abstract being who works alongside the goddess by helping her use magic to break the rules of reality. Beyond these two, the Witch's Road is filled with monsters, demons, and other creatures that can affect the goddess's power, making the journey through it incredibly dangerous. Those brave enough to take on the trials of the Witch's Road faced almost fatal risks, but if they make it to the end, they are rewarded with whatever their soul is missing. The Witch's Road is a relatively new addition to the Marvel Comics universe, first introduced in Scarlet Witch issue 3 in 2015, written by James Robinson. In this series, Wanda Maximoff traveled the world solving magical crimes with the help of Agatha's ghost, who was then dead and had formed a begrudging alliance with Wanda. While investigating a mystical plague in Ireland, Wanda realized she could track down the villain behind it by using the Witch's Road. Interestingly, both Wanda and Agatha were familiar with the road, even though it had never been mentioned in the comics before. But somehow, they knew that only beings with magical powers could enter the mysterious realm. So during her adventure, Wanda journeyed to the Witch's Road, which also referred to as Magica, and was part of the alternate reality known as Earth 16558. While not much else has been revealed about the Witch's Road, Agatha mentioned that as a ghost, she could not enter it on her own, but she could accompany Wanda if she went. Weirdly enough, instead of gathering a coven in the comics, all Wanda needed to do was cast a hex, although she admitted that the process always made her feel a bit queasy. Once she stepped through the road, they met someone who identified herself as the Scarlet Witch. This person was actually a younger version of Wanda's deceased biological mother, Natalia, who once held the mantle of the Scarlet Witch herself. Agatha initially cautioned Wanda against sharing any knowledge of the future with Natalia, as it could change events after her time. Apart from that, different types of magic users may find their powers enhanced or diminished in certain areas of the road. As the comic progressed, we learned that the goddess of witchcraft resided on the Witch's Road, alongside a being known as Chaos, who helped her manipulate magic to bend the laws of physical reality. While most of the road resembled a forest, it became increasingly abstract and psychedelic as one approached the goddess's home at the end of the path. The mystical creatures that lived on the road were also influenced by the goddess's health, which meant that if she was unwell, it affected them too. Eventually, Wanda, Agatha, and Natalia discovered that Chaos had betrayed the goddess and planned an attack against her, creating a kind of infection within magic itself. With the help of Wanda's brother, Pietro, aka Quicksilver, the three witches then managed to rescue the goddess, but not without a heavy cost, which came with Natalia sacrificing her soul in the process. Now, throughout the rest of this volume of Scarlet Witch, Witch, Wanda traveled in and out of the Witch's Road multiple times, guided by the ghost of Agatha Harkness. As she navigated the road, Wanda's mission later evolved into healing the power of witchcraft, which was seen as a unique form of magic with its own distinct source of energy and power in the Marvel Universe. By the end of her journey, Wanda not only reclaimed her powers but also healed the source of witchcraft's magic. She even fully resurrected Agatha Harkness, who later used magic to regain her youth. Although this transformation also led her down an evil path, sadly, the end of Witch's Road in Agatha All Along did not bring a similar kind of absolution for the Coven, which circles us back to our main question. Is the Witch's Road in Agatha All Along even real? Early in Agatha All Along, the series had established that Agatha was the only known witch to have walked the Witch's Road before, thus giving her the experience she needed to tackle it once again. She was determined to regain the powers the Scarlet Witch took from her in WandaVision, while Billy was focused on finding his missing twin brother Tommy. Together, we saw them make it through every trial, but when they reached the last one, they found themselves back where they started, next to the shoes they had left at the road's entrance. Confused and frustrated by coming back to where they began, Agatha, Jennifer, and Billy made it out of the road after finishing off the trial, but unfortunately, only Jen got her heart's desire and flew off to the sunset. Agatha and Billy, on the other hand, came home to an altercation with Rio, aka Death. Fast forward from a very intense fight, Agatha ultimately sacrificed herself to Rio by kissing her and letting Death's black smoke swirl around him. Rising slightly in the air, she looked rather peaceful as life left her and she fell back to the ground. As Rio gazed at Agatha's lifeless body, her body sunk into the earth and beautiful flowers bloomed from the spot. Billy then picked up the brooch and left after Rio informed him that he was free to go. Now, after going up to his room, Billy looked around, taking note of his posters of Lorna Wu's famous Ballad of the Witch's Road album, a green-skinned Wicked Witch statue, a small tree that looks eerily like the one he saw on the road, and even multicolored leaves scattered around. Slowly, the pieces click into place for him as we see flashbacks of the initial part of the show where Agatha tells Billy that the road isn't real, and then Billy having a look at the road and insisting that the Witch's Road looked exactly as he imagined it. Even when Lilia read his fortune, she called Billy a magician with an enormous potential and the ability to turn all his goals into reality. To top that off, Billy also suddenly remembered Agatha's reaction to the Witch's Road and how she had looked almost surprised that it was real. Plus, when he had questioned whether she had ever walked it before, Agatha had responded with a wink, saying she did not think he had it in him. At that moment, every piece of the puzzle just fell into the right place, and gradually we realized it was Billy all along. As it turns out that the Witch's Road is legendary for a reason, as it has only ever been a myth. In reality, the road didn't actually exist, at least not until Billy unknowingly brought it into being with his powers by creating his own kind of hex in order to manifest it. He basically conjured the Witch's Road out of thin air without even realizing it. Like his mom, the Scarlet Witch, he has an incredible power to create, but unlike Wanda, who once transformed Westview into her own sitcom paradise in WandaVision, Billy's magic took a different form. Subconsciously, he used his powers to shape the Witch's Road exactly as he had imagined it, a kind of Wizard of Oz-inspired path filled with mystery, possibility, and danger. He even built each witch's trial from his favorite movies, songs, pictures, and decorations, thus turning the elements of the road into a reflection of his very own imagination. In the end, after Billy realized that the Witch's Road was never real and he had unknowingly created it with his own magic, he destroyed the road and transformed the former doorway into a tombstone to honor Sharon, Alice, and Lilia. But still, this prompted another question. If the Witch's Road is a fragment of Billy's imagination brought to reality, where did the legend of the ballad originate from? What makes the reveal that Billy created the road even more intriguing is the backstory of how the legend of the Witch's Road began. The finale went ahead first into Agatha's past, showing her giving birth to her son, Nicholas Scratch. When he was born, Death appeared and told Agatha that all she could do was give him time, meaning he was destined to die. While it was never explicitly stated that Agatha had a deal with Death to kill witches, we soon see her doing exactly that, with young Nikki involved in all her schemes. Ironically, it was actually a young Nicholas who started singing an early version of the ballad of the Witch's Road, but instead of the main verse, the child would sing about walking down the windy road instead of the Witch's Road. And Agatha always joined him, with the two of them really enjoying the moment together. As time went by, Agatha and her son slowly put together the lyrics to the ballad of the Witch's Road, calling it the Windy Road. One day, Nicholas was performing the song in a tavern to collect money, while Agatha quietly moved through the distracted crowd, encouraging others to reward him. A curious red-headed witch then asked him where he had learned such an interesting tune. She also noticed that Nicholas looked quite unwell, but when she offered him a warm meal, the boy politely declined, saying his mom needed him home. He later tried to convince his angry mother that they could kill more witches tomorrow. As night fell, they drifted off to sleep while singing the song of the Windy Road together. The inevitable moment that Agatha had dreaded finally arrived at the dead of the night, as Nicholas woke up to see Rio waving at him with a green flame flickering in her hand. Before curiously approaching her, he picked something up from the blanket and ultimately left with Rio. The next morning, when Agatha woke up to find her son dead, she began crying out, begging for more time with the only soul she has ever loved. With trembling hands, she then dug a grave for him and sang the ballad softly before tucking a piece of his hair into her locket as she laid him to rest. In that very moment, the Three of Swords tarot card from Lilia's vision captures her pain and guilt perfectly, as Agatha had the power to wield the most potent magic and take countless lives, but when it came to her son, she could not do anything.
The road wasn't real until you made it real.
Did Agatha know the truth about Billy creating the Witch's Road by casting a hex subconsciously? So, while Agatha was mourning Nicholas's death over his grave, a blonde witch overheard her singing the ballad and interrupted, asking where the mythical road was, since she seemed to be so beautifully familiar with the song. At first, Agatha was frustrated at the disruption during her son's funeral and initially felt anger bubbling up inside her, but then a crafty idea struck her when the young woman told her that the road offered a prize worth the danger for witches who were brave and true. After she asked Agatha to become her guide, Agatha acknowledged the woman's sincerity and assured her that she knew the way by heart. But before walking down the path, they needed to gather a coven. Once they assembled a group of women to conjure the rumored road, Agatha cleverly lured the witches in and asked them to begin the ritual by singing the ballad, just like we saw her attempt to do in episode 2. She would then coax them by scoffing at them, calling their efforts pathetic and embarrassing. In retaliation, when the women attempted to unleash their magic, Agatha drained their powers and their essence, leaving them lifeless in her wake. Basically, she took her son's innocent song and turned it into a fake legend to gain more power, and somehow, this clever scheme worked every time, as Agatha gathered covens under the pretense of exploring the road, even though it never existed. She actually managed to pull this con off for centuries, thus maintaining the legend, and later even admitting to Billy that this was her plan all along. This arrangement was part of Agatha's unsaid pact with Rio, in exchange for more time, as Agatha would deliver souls to death over the centuries, providing her with a steady supply of bodies and spirits to claim. Later, in a montage, we saw Agatha across various time periods as she steadily gained more power. This pattern continued for centuries, and with each successful contract, she only grew stronger. But everything changed when Agatha met Billy. Although she grew fond of him, Agatha had no real intention of taking him into the Witch's Road. After all, she knew it didn't actually exist. Her plan was simple. She wanted to use the other witches she had recruited to attack her so she could absorb her powers, which is why she wanted Billy to stay away when they performed the song. But things did not go quite as expected, because, to Agatha's surprise, the glowing blue door of the Witch's Road appeared. The moment Billy, Alice, Sharon, Davis, Jen, and Lilia went inside the door, Agatha realized that the road was created as a whole other dimension by Billy as a hex, even if he did so subconsciously. Since the door never should have appeared in her basement, it makes sense why Agatha was so shocked, because even when Billy and the coven stepped through it, we could see Agatha piecing things together and inevitably realizing that only one of Scarlet Witch's children could be powerful enough to pull off such a hex, meaning Agatha knew it was Billy all along.
Stop! No! Attendez! Arrêtez! Pourquoi?
How did Billy's magic work to create the hex of the Witch's Road? So just like how Wanda did in WandaVision by setting her magic on autopilot to sustain the hex around Westview, Billy subconsciously did the same with the Witch's Road and Agatha All Along. However, unlike the people of Westview who suffered under Wanda's spell, Billy gave his coven a real chance, as the road he created followed those who walked it to fulfill their deepest desires. For example, Jennifer Kale's wish to be unbound was granted, and she even regained her powers for the first time in over a century. Although it was mostly with Agatha's help, Billy also succeeded in finding his brother Tommy, who had been lost in the ether. After successfully bringing Tommy back, he even gave him a new body, just as he himself had found a vessel in William Kaplan. And to top that off, even Alice and Lilia got what they wanted from the Witch's Road, even though the price they paid was with their lives. Sharon, on the other hand, was a human and did not even know what the road was, so she became the unintended sacrifice that allowed Billy's magic to work. As it turns out, all magic, even the unintentional ones, demand a cost. Sure, the Witch's Road was real, but only because Billy made it so, and now that he knows the truth, it may never appear again, just as Wanda's hex vanished for good. And just as the hex brought so much pain, a guilt-ridden Billy might now ensure that no other witch suffers or dies on the path he created by mistake. Then again, even though Billy turned the door to the Witch's Road into a memorial for Sharon, Alice, and Lilia, there is still a chance that it might now be a permanent fixture in the MCU as a mystical realm waiting for the next coven to enter. Just as Tommy and Billy survived the destruction of the hex, existing independently in the Scarlet Witch's magic, I think there is a probability that the Witch's Road may no longer need its creator to endure. Once brought to life, it could continue on its own, becoming part of the Marvel Universe long after Agatha All Along ends. I mean, come on, it is the MCU, anything can happen, but that's just my theory. What do you guys think about it? Let us know about your thoughts and theories in the comment box down below. And as always, if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.